pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, as we gather this evening, we ask once again for you to give this council the strength, courage, and wisdom that we need. And we thank you for the privilege that it is to serve this community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We're going to call to order the December 6th meeting of the Mooresville Town Council. Gentlemen, have had a chance to review the minutes from our previous meeting. I need a motion to either approve or amend the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Craig, Jeff, 4-0. Unfinished business. We have an update for the comprehensive plan.
Well, good evening. I'm Corey Weitzel with HWC. Been part of the process. Adam is going to walk you through a little bit of an update as to where we're at. What we wanted to do was, more than anything, just give you an update as to where we're at in the process and some of the key issues we're finding. Adam Pieper's been leading this with us. Also with us tonight, we've got Patrick O'Neill, who's also part of the team for this project. So we'll I think the good news so far has been we've had really good participation. We have good over 600 responses to our public survey that we put out. We had good participation and feedback during our open house. Always still looking for more input. So as we talk about this tonight, it's preliminary, but we're still looking for a lot of input. Adam, you want to walk through?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So, just briefly to touch on kind of where we are in the process. This started back in May with the creation and organization of a project steering committee that has met several times now. The first one being in June. We've got several steering committee representatives here tonight as well. And then after that, kicked off the primary public outreach that included a number of stakeholder meetings, broader community meetings, and an online survey that I'll talk about in a little bit to really kind of gauge and take the temperature of the community and start that. Coming out of this meeting, still interested in community input, but we are starting to draft some of the plan recommendations and content so that we can share that with the steering committee. Again, let them confirm that we're on the right track, work through any refinements we need so that we can have a public draft to share early next year before hopefully moving forward into the adoption process with the Plan Commission and then back before you all kind of late spring, early summer. So like I said, we had 8 focus group meetings organized around a variety of topics. We've had 2 community meetings. That first one was at the high school, and then just a few weeks ago, like I said, we were at the library. And then our first online community survey started a little slow, but through some additional promotional efforts from our project steering committee and maybe some of you all, we got that up to 622 responses, so really pleased with those results. You know, the other thing we like to see across these various outreach efforts is when we, you know, hear some common themes and it's see some trends. So really one of the big one is how do we find this balance between accommodating new growth or attracting new investment, but not losing the small town character and a lot of the existing assets that people are so proud of. Heard, a lot of people saying we need more housing, both owner-occupied and renter-occupied. We know that's not unique to Mooresville, certainly nationally, and across central Indiana, still trying to catch up from, a decade of slower housing starts. But not just new housing, addressing vacancy and some of the property issues in existing neighborhoods. Certainly not losing sight of within. It's not all this outward growth focus. From a transportation standpoint, existing traffic congestion, concerns about east-west connectivity, and those likely only to be exacerbated as larger regional projects occur. Another thought or theme was this idea of, as these other things are happening, needing to grow town staff and capacity to address some of these challenges. And then, I'll focus on downtown and being able to make that more vibrant. So as we look towards the future now, and the comprehensive plan, obviously the future land use plan is a big piece of it, transportation element, and then that's supported by the separate thoroughfare plan that we're creating, and have a consultant, traffic engineering consultant working on that analysis right now. But these things going on around Mooresville, right? So in and around Mooresville, the existing transportation challenges like I talked about, obviously I-69 improvements, to the southeast, planned I-70 interchange that Plainfield is advocating for. I think we're kind of assuming that's an if, or a when, not if. It might speed up depending on if Plainfield's willing to fund a little bit more of that than NDOT. Also combined with this zoning buffer that just went away, less than a week ago. So whereas you have historically had planning and zoning authority over some of these potential growth areas to the east and west, that's gone now. So what are the mechanisms by which to control some of that? And then surrounding community pressures. So Mooresville's population been pretty steady for the last 2 decades. Gone up a little bit, down a little bit, but hovering right around that 10,000 point. Certainly, Plainfield, Greenwood increased substantially, and now we're even seeing Monrovia and Barkersville, some of the neighboring communities really start to grow. So as they continue to expand, what does that mean for Mooresville? And then, like I said, this housing demand that we know is coming, and you guys have obviously recently approved some subdivisions that would result in quite a few new housing units. So what that looks like we said, is it doesn't show up on the screen, right? This area to the west, across White Lick Creek, which is in the floodplain, has obviously been a barrier to development that way. But if we think about a new I-70 interchange and the access that affords to that area, I think we can all agree it would be a pretty attractive place to live. Jump on the interstate if you work downtown. And one of the concerns is that with the buffer zone going away and that being in the county now, if you're not providing municipal services, sewer service to that, and it gets subdivided into a bunch of 2 to 5 acre lots on well and septic, right? You're going to be feeling transportation impacts from that development. They're going to be using your parks. If there's a fire run, it's Matt and his guys going. But you're not realizing any revenue from that. Likewise to the southeast along the 144 corridor. Yes, it's 8 miles to I-69. It seems pretty far, but in reality, I think that's not that much. And again, that enhanced access will create some additional development pressures. Beyond just, some properties that are within town or immediately adjacent to town, along where you already have sewer service. So as this kind of builds and adds up, like we said, there could be some substantial impacts. And then if you're not being more proactive about addressing that growth, and having a say in what that might look like, it doesn't mean the first project that comes along wants to do anything, you say yes. But if we're saying we're going to let the county decide, that might not be the most favorable position either. So likewise, from a transportation standpoint, like I said, we've got a traffic sub-consultant who's working on their analysis of the existing system now. And what we've tasked them with is, again, as we look at some of these potential growth areas, where are the choke points? Again, knowing east-west connectivity is already an issue, but if we look at like County Line Road as an example, obviously it doesn't cross 67 for a reason right now with the proximity of the railroad. It would be a challenging connection, but what we want to, and costly, what we want to understand is, does that provide enough of a system benefit that it's worth exploring that project, or is it just kind of marginal when we know, given the cost and difficulty, let's focus our attention elsewhere. And there's some other locations, again, and just, the kind of larger local network that would need to be built out to accommodate economic development successes on the south side of town, or that residential growth to the east and west. And then finally, this question of what are the quality of life amenities to support your housing and job creation goals. So something we've heard a lot is, I got to put my bike in my car on the bike rack on the back, and I drive to Hendricks County to use their trail systems. I'd love to be able to do that here. How do we look at facilities along White Lick Creek to connect into Hendricks County's existing network, or to the northeast to Sedalis, and just in town, using streets as we look at Indiana, obviously, is an opportunity and a primary north-south arterial. You've already done some projects there with enhanced sidewalks or multi-use trails, but I would continue that north to the high school, and so on. So, kind of question, as I've run through all that quickly, is just your thoughts on, what the interest, or like I said, how proactive you think the community may be in addressing some of these challenges.
I think maybe just to add one more thing to this is, through this, I don't think anybody came through this process and said, we want to grow. That's not what we heard. What we heard was, the growth is coming, what are we going to do? And what we've started to outline and what we've heard through this process is the steps to become prepared for that growth, which are incremental steps. That growth is not going to happen overnight. It's going to slowly, over time. When that interchange comes in, though, at Plainfield on I-70, that opens the floodgates and changes the dynamic. And so there's steps that can be taken up front now to be ready for growth and development on the west side of the town. There's steps that you can be taking with organizational capacity, looking at how you have the right people in place to review the permits. How do you have the right people in place to oversee development of the projects that are going to improve traffic instead of just look at it as a challenge? How do you take on all these challenges becomes the big question for this. So yes, the trick to this plan is not, do we want to grow or not? It's growth is happening, and how are we going to manage it, and what does that intensity of management look like for us? And so we've not come in here and so far really specified, you got to do this year one, this year two, as much as it is, here's 3 or 4 things you're going to have to do in terms of your park and recreation and quality of life. We need to slowly ramp up things to serve the next generation of people that are going to be here. We've got to look at traffic situations to resolve these things before they're a major problem. And you're going to have to slowly implement these things over time. And so we're looking for feedback from you and others as to what does that intensity look like? How quickly do we ramp up to be prepared for these things? That's really the key challenge. So yes, we'd love for you to say exactly what you're looking for, but we want your feedback over the next few weeks as we work on this as to what that looks like. Can we answer questions that you have about what we've walked you through tonight? Concerns?
The non-jurisdictional buffer zone. I think you guys were instrumental in creating a comprehensive plan that allowed the county to say, hey, now we've filled this step in order to take that buffer zone back. I think you guys created their comprehensive plan for the county, Morgan County, correct?
We were part of that
Okay.
plan. I'm not sure how much it was written to accomplish that.
Well, and then I also think in the sales pitch to have us do that was you were going to work really closely with that plan. So what you said this evening is, what are we going to do about that? Well, we're kind of at a loss here with them saying, no, we can do it better than you. We can do it. And you know, how do we prepare our infrastructure? And we've guided our infrastructure to the south for industrial ground. We've guided it to the east. We have areas that are in our non-jurisdiction, or in the buffer zone, that we're providing services to. The wonderful thing about our park district is it is a township park instead of just, so when we move east, when we go east or west, at least those homes will pay into that park district. The township has an outstanding fire department that is on par with ours. We work well with them. The question is, when you say, how are we going to address it? I was hoping this would be more of a partnership, especially since you guys are working on the plan just like you worked on theirs.
I think it's a great set of points about this, that you're not doing this in isolation. It is a whole network, and what we've seen from working with the county is very much that they want to partner in this. And what they've asked for from you through this process is, show us what that future land use that you want to see in that old buffer zone should be, so that they can follow that. And so there may be an update to their plan later on to reflect that. But right now, what they have said is, we want to match what is happening in your buffer zone. And so they've been part of our committee. And Laura's been part of that conversation. We want to continue to take that strategy whenever we can. So I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of, let's not try and reinvent the wheel of what somebody else is doing. We're not trying to tell what other groups how to do it, but specifically with the buffer zone, it's also, how do you work together in that? And we've got some strategies that we're going to outline in here about how you work together through that process, and we can talk through that too.
Well, I mean, if you look at, and there's times that we shoot ourselves in the foot. If you look at some of our rezones, you know, the highest and best use seems to change with the demand of the market. And us saying, hey, there's a housing shortage versus, hey, there's a job shortage, and where we say we're going to go into for whether it's industrial use or residential use, the town of Mooresville's been a pretty good place to live when it comes to forced annexation. We've never done any of it. I think all of our annexation has been either for voluntary growth or humanitarian purposes to serve with sanitary sewers. So we've not forced the issue. When you say, how are we going to grow? Our north boundary is set. It is the south boundary of the county, so we're kind of limited to what that's the North County's road to maintain. That's how it works in the state of Indiana. And the interchange that you're talking about, I've not seen anything other than, hey, we're going to take this bridge that's already existing, we're going to put an interchange to basically serve the housing additions that are popping up to the north of 70. Haven't seen anything where even Hendricks County is saying, hey, you know, this is our plans to run down to our south boundary. So I don't know. I guess we're kind of counting on you guys to say, because I think you worked on Plainfield's and Hendricks County's comprehensive plans. So for us to run a road, or say we need to run a road east-west or north-south to pick up that corridor off of 70, right now, town ends there at the Goodyear store and on 267. We don't even really have the county road or the 267 up to the county road. That is still a county road that they've taken in from the state of Indiana. So I guess when you ask us our input, I guess we need a little bit more from you guys as far as what are the areas that you've already worked on and designed a comprehensive plan for. And I'm not going to say we're all going to roll over and expose our soft underbelly, but to a degree, it sounds like the plans are already written around us.
I think you can say it to an extent. I think the big question in this whole situation becomes west of town. When you get west of White Lick Creek, what happens if you? Let's kind of play two scenarios. Scenario one says we let it develop as it is, set up right now, which means it's going to develop on 1 to 4 acre lots out there. And you're going to have a lot of housing over time, because you can look further west than these maps go, and you can see all the housing that's out there that is all on, just large
Septic-
lot, rural
septic systems.
septic systems. And so when you start to see that, that could continue out, and you'll have a lot of housing. It won't be on septic, it won't be on your sewer, so you would not be able to annex it. So there's a lot of housing development out there that's going to generate traffic and issues that's going to go through town. So how do we look at that and say, is that going to be good for us to have all that development out there, rushing traffic through the town, and are we going to have the revenue to deal with it? Kind of the flip side of that says, maybe we need to get sewers out there, and if you put sewer out there, can you control where that development occurs? And encourage it in certain places. And then with the sewer control, you have the ability to, as you have managed your boundaries, the sewer control gives you the ability to actually bring that into the town so that you can have the revenue to be able to start to address some of the issues the traffic will cause. Now, is it worth it? Is that what you want? Or that becomes kind of the hardest question of this. Incremental growth to the east is not quite as scary because that seems like it's already happening, but that western side of it is a big impact that really has to be thought through. And it's looked at in some of these other plans, but there's kind of this gap in the western part of your area that, well, Hendricks County's not necessarily building that to serve development to the south, that this is something that we've identified some preliminary roadways as part of the county's plan that may need to be developed, and we're hoping by the time we get some of this modeling complete, we can give you a little bit more thorough picture of what that roadway network needs to be to support that. And then it starts to become a question of, do we want to take that on or not? And those are questions that we still have those in front of us. We're still working on this. It's not fully flushed out yet.
Here's the problem I see. This attitude of us versus the county. When you're talking about areas that involve the county on the town edge, it's kind of like there's a us versus them mentality. And I think we're probably at least 20 years behind on this transportation planning because the intersections you're talking about, State Road 267 and Hendricks County line, there's already a traffic problem now, before the interchange comes in. And the plan that I've seen that Hendricks County has, or Plainfield, whichever one ends up there, has industrial. They plan it out like 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And they have sections of that in the country that are industrial, housing, and then you get closer to the interstate, it becomes more like, commercial. So I have seen their plan. It's out there, it's public, and it's available on their websites. And it dumps traffic right off of Hendricks County, it will dump traffic right to Hendricks County line and 267, which is already a problem. And accidents, there's tons of them there. They've tried to address some of it with better signage and lighted signage, but it's a big problem. So first I think we need to see, first I have a question. When the buffer zone happened, the buffer zone had representatives in our planning commission. Is there a possibility to have town representatives on the county planning commission? Have you ever seen that, or is that even a statutory thing? Do you know the answer, Joel?
It's up to the county for appointment, so they can choose somebody from here if they would want to.
Okay.
But there's no mandate.
Okay. Well, maybe we should, instead of saying, well, they need to work with us, maybe we should contact them and say, hey, can we get somebody from Mooresville, onto the county planning commission? Find ways to work together. And my experience has been that they've been more than willing to talk about these areas that you're highlighting to the west and to the south and east that are in the county. But, I think this is sort of a new mentality that's developing as new officials come in, that maybe we ought to cooperate and work together and find ways to do that.
Yeah, and I think there are examples certainly of communities being represented on county plan commissions, a lot of times it's in a non-voting role, but they're at least getting materials in there for part of the discussion. And I'll just say, I think one of the other things that we've discussed as a potential concern, I know the county has said, let us know what you'd like to see in these buffer areas. But to some extent, if someone comes in with a subdivision application that meets all of the statutory requirements and the design standards for the county, they're likely going to be approving that.
So how do we,
Develop.
well, if we communicate to them, hey, here's what we would like to see, they say, here's what we would like to see, because they can change the land use in that area, correct? But they can update their plan in their area. How do we bridge that gap of communication and see if there's areas to cooperate?
I think one of the big questions with this becomes, should you allow development there in the meantime? Should there be encouraged development in that west side in the meantime? Or should you kind of say, maybe that's not an area we want to develop for a few years? Because depending on if and when that interchange is developed, it's two different things. So maybe it's working with the county to say, do we want to see development in that area? Because it really, until that interchange is developed, that's going to dictate the whole pattern of what that should be.
Right.
Part of the answer is, even if you're not on the plan commission, participation with their planning process, there's several places where you can participate. They have a technical advisory committee. Getting town staff on that technical advisory committee,
Okay, there's a way.
invited to those meetings,
Okay.
whenever there's something going on in the old buffer is an easy thing to do. And that was, we're working through the same kind of process with Martinsville about what do you do when you've had the buffer and you no longer do. That was one of the key things that we told them. Just participate in the technical advisory committee process. Show up at the meetings. Coordinate. Even if you're not on the plan commission, somebody representing the town can still be there. And that's where it becomes this, kind of the other side of this, which is, with the magnitude development, there's a staffing that needs to come with that to be able to participate in this and make sure good decisions are being made. And I'm sure you guys need one more meeting of an evening to go to, but maybe there's someone that can go to those to make sure that continuation of planning occurs. And I call it more common sense planning than anything else. Let's just work together and figure out what's best and be cooperative in the process.
That gives a couple of ideas right there, just in a little conversation. I think we could have more conversations about that aspect of things later,
Next steps in this process is that we said we're going to get a draft together, and then we'll be setting up a public presentation during the winter, and we'll be coming back and really in that process, line by line, walking you through everything that we're talking about here. And so we'll be coming back to you with that information later. In the meantime, call us. We're happy to sit down at any point and chat through this in more detail, get into some of the details of this. We'd be happy to sit down with any of you and work through that. So thanks for your time this evening.
And I'll just add real quick, there is a project website, planmooresville.com. That links to a second community survey that's open right now that duplicates those materials that were at the open house a few weeks ago. So as Corey said earlier, still very much interested in participation, and that's available right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shane, I know you've been working pretty close with them.
Yeah.
When they have that, when they're ready for that meeting, I think we should call a special meeting just for that. If you want to kind of spearhead that to where when we set that up, rather than try to schedule it with a council meeting, let's give it the attention at
A separate meeting? Oh, okay.
New business. This is a public hearing for ordinance 10. This is an additional appropriation. This is moving funds. Gentlemen, you have that in front of you. This is moving funds from our LR&S fund. And also, that's just for 10. Okay, That's the one. That's the CCD, I apologize. And the MVH restricted, I apologize. If you look at this, the ordinance 10 is in front of you. It is, for the public, it is moving funds for two purposes. The first purpose is going to be moving money from our MVH restricted fund. That is the state of Indiana determined that with MVH funds that come into a community of our size, 50% of it is in what they call a restricted fund. It can only be used for the improvements and upgrades of existing or new roads. In that, we are moving $164,579.64 into our Community Crossings Matching Grant Fund. And that is to pay our 25% of the last Community Crossings Matching Grant project. In that project, we also added, after the fact, like I said, when we approve these applications and then accept the funding, we accept the responsibility to do the project as applied for and as approved. If we add anything outside of that, we cannot pay it with those matching grant funds. There was a project that Dave wanted to do, and it was going into curbs and sidewalks, and that was just something that was thought of after the bid process. And moving $12,600 from the MVH restricted fund into the change order fund of that project. Also in this transfer of funds or additional appropriation is $220,000 from our CCD fund. The CCD fund is a property tax driven fund. It is same tax rate annually. It was approved by previous councils. It is 0.0430 of the assessed value of your home, minus all of your deductions. This $220,000 are going to go towards the $220,000 is going to go towards the demolition of 1 and 3 East Main. That was during the process of accepting bids for demolition, it was voted on to use those funds, even though we knew that at that time that we would have to additional appropriate it. Also in that additional appropriation is $30,000, and these are items for repair of street department equipment. These are some items that needed to be addressed. They were not funded through the MVH, but the CCD fund is it is acceptable to use it for any and all town uses. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to speak either for or against the additional appropriation of these two funds? Jeff, do we have anyone that signed in?
Nobody signed in.
Is there anyone that wants to speak on it? Gentlemen, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Greg Shane, 4-0. Or do we have to do that?
Since you had a public hearing, that's one of the exceptions on the ordinances. So generally speaking, on an ordinance, you have to suspend the rules to consider on first reading, but you had a public hearing on this, and therefore it's kind of like a zoning ordinance as well. Since you had a public hearing, you don't have to go through the process of suspending the rules.
So we can pass this on.
You can consider it at this time.
Gentlemen, we need to consider ordinance 10, 2022. It is the additional appropriation. I need a motion to approve or deny the ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 10-2022.
Motion been made. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Shane, Greg, 4-0, motion passes unanimous on first reading. Next item on the agenda is the resolution of the Mooresville Town Council authorizing the clerk treasurer to pay certain demand payments in between meetings. Do what?
Yeah,
She put them, I don't know why, that's what I asked. She just put them
It's
on
okay.
there. I'm just reading them off by, both of you. Anyhow, this resolution allows the clerk treasurer's office to pay certain claims in between our dockets. What this allows us to do is get claims that may or may not, may be due in between. The state of Indiana frowns on taxpayers paying any late fees. So whether it's a sewer bill, I think our WEX gas bills every now and then come in between with a certain due date. It allows the clerk treasurer's office to go ahead and pay those claims and then put them on our next docket. That's the software glitch that we had last year, but they've got that taken care of. Are there any questions on resolution number 24? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve Resolution 24, 2022.
Motion been made. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Jeff, Greg, 4-0.
Tom,
Yes.
could you just add an S to Mooresville Town Council so it doesn't say Moorville? I just noticed it. At the bottom where the signatures are.
I'm like Moorville.
Moorville. Right here. It's just missing the S.
You have that ordinance.
This isn't Moorville, it's Mooresville. If you last night checked.
If you don't, I can pull it out of this. Good catch, Ryan. Good catch.
I just saw it. I missed it earlier.
There's that one. Next item on the agenda is a resolution transferring the funds. That's what the question was because they got kind of put out of order, but that's the way they were on the agenda, so we did them in that order. The next item is the transfer of funds from the local, or from the restricted fund to the matching grant. If nothing else, this is just a bit of housekeeping. We moved the money out of one fund into another, and now we're moving it from that fund into, the resolution is moving it into the local roads and streets match, the community crossing matching grant. I was a little confused, and Diana and Debbie took a great deal of time to explain it to me. The first item moved it from the savings account into the checking account. This is writing the check, correct? Best way to put it? I need a motion to either approve or deny the transfer of funds for the local road and bridge matching grant.
Motion to approve, resolution 25-2022.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Greg, Shane, 4-0. Next item on the agenda is the contract for the service agreement with the Morgan County Economic Development Corporation. Mike, do you have anything to say on this?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, each year the Morgan County Economic Development Corporation comes to you with the hope of renewing the annual contract we have to provide the services that we do to the town of Mooresville. I just want to share a couple things with you that are very current from this perspective. Today we hosted an international company that visited Mooresville to look at the town's industrial spec building down in Mooresville Business Park. So we continue to be active on the marketing and sales side of that. Throughout the county as a countywide entity, we continue to work on locations here in Mooresville. We have 2 projects that are currently pending in front of your redevelopment commission that we think will come to fruition soon, which will be good things for the town of Mooresville and the RDC to announce in the future. We also continue to work on projects here in Monrovia, over at Waverly, and down at Martinsville. And earlier, when we heard from HWC on the planning update, the EDC assisted you by putting that steering committee together for you that's doing this work on the town's behalf. Again, a number of them are here this evening. We've kind of stayed out of the way so that you could get their voices on paper first, because we meddle in those things for a living, as we had on the county level, on the city of Martinsville level, and certainly encouraging HWC to come together to do your planning process as well. So we are that central location where the bodies politic can talk about land use and economic development, how they go hand in hand. We continue to do that on your behalf and with you. So we hope that you will remain at the table as one of the major investors in the EDC next year. We're not asking for an increase from our current budget. We're keeping our budget flat. We're providing maximum service at minimum cost. So we hope that you'll continue to be part of that partnership. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Mike?
I'd just like to say that when I look at what's happened since I've been on the council, some of the new companies that we have, especially in Flagstaff, where we've had empty lots since, the 1980s, or whenever it was put in, you've been filling those with companies that are choosing to invest here. And I think, though, that you've been instrumental in that. I don't know if you want to mention a couple of those that have actually built and filled their facility.
Well, one of the most recent ones was Reconserve Indiana, which is a company that takes dry human food waste and bakes the grains out of it to use as an animal feed supplements. We thought that was a nice diversity into the ag industry. And we'll see some other things that I've noted previously going on the south side of town that the RDC has pending. But a large part of it is its capacity. It's you having the sewers, and we talked earlier about the growth issues. The county is very much a willful partner to you. What we're talking about on the county level and our ability to advocate to the county officials is the county needs population growth. We have bills to pay. We want more people paying more income tax revenue living in Morgan County. So how do we cluster those homes around the municipalities that have the growth infrastructure? And for example, if it's a situation where Mooresville doesn't necessarily want to grow its boundaries and its population, what the county hopes is that Mooresville will continue to be that important partner who can provide extraterritorial sewer with the surcharge into the townships, where the county can realize the growth. So there is a give and take there, and a lot of that happens behind the scenes in our conversations with the EDC. So I appreciate you pointing that out, Councilman. The important thing about capacity is not just sewer, but it's having the real estate to move to market. And we constantly face that pressure in Morgan County and in Mooresville. It's how do we find more dirt to turn? Where are the willing landowners relative to the utilities and the cost of doing business, and where would that benefit be? So that's always in play. But it's been economic development over the last 2 weeks has seen a lot of activity in Mooresville because of your Mooresville Business Park.
Well, and you've got some other flow sources, an example.
Flow source, right. We kept them in Mooresville helped us keep them in Morgan County when the I-69 project relocated them from Martinsville. So there's that give and take among our communities as a partnership. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about in Morgan County, which we still all know each other. I mean, this is a county that hasn't seen the booming growth that others around us have, but we still know each other, and we still can interact with each other in a way that maybe in other counties they can't, because they are so focused on their own municipal separate issues that sometimes it is more difficult to be a partner.
Well, I would like to see the fruit of what you do is showing through taking lots that have been empty for a long, long time and filling those.
Well,
Number
I
one,
appreciate that.
this was done way before my time. But I also think that I would like to expect that there's cooperation with you. I don't know about cooperation, but working together with you by our redevelopment commission and our redevelopment consultant. I'd like to see a little more of that done, and I think you're more than willing to do that. So I would just like to put that out there in the public, that I would like to see that, because I see fruit coming from what you're doing, and we have a lot of land for sale.
Yeah, and deals take time, but again, as I noted earlier, I think you're going to see that fruition sooner rather than later now
Good.
on some things that we know in confidence, so. But it's a team ball, and that's what it's all about in Morgan County, where Martinsville is willing to see Mooresville grow. We all want to see Waverly do well with the new interchange because of the relationship to Bargersville. But Monrovia is, let's face this, in the decennial census, our county grew by 5.2% population. Monrovia at the same time grew by 54%. So Monrovia grew about 1/5 of our county's population growth over that 10 years of 5. I mean, that's so when we and the reason was because they had home lots that were platted and available. When there's capacity available in Morgan County, people like choosing to live here. When we don't have capacity, our kids grow up and move across the county line. So that's what we're working from a long-term perspective to help you with your plans, be able to create that space for our kids to come back and raise their families just as we hope they would. So.
I think I'll be glad to see the Shell building sold when it gets sold, and I think you'll play a role in that. So that's my.
I think that we're in for some exciting times sooner rather than later.
But I appreciate what you do. You understand where I'm coming from.
Oh, yeah, I do. And the RDC does have a statutory role to play. I put it to people like this. We move the ball to the goal line. You guys score the ball. That's our role. We do the marketing and sales. You, in essence, your RDC as your financial partner, are the deal closers. So if we bring you good deals, you're always going to tell us yes, and that's how we look at our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I don't think we want to approve this contract, do we? I need a motion to approve the 2023 Economic Development Services Agreement.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2023 Economic Development Services Agreement with the Morgan County Economic Development Corporation.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you
for your
for
confidence in your teamwork. We appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is the South Street Sidewalk. Cheryl Dillon. Cheryl here? Dave, do you know anything about this?
Well, I did receive a phone call from a lady on South Street or High Street.
It says South Street.
I think it's supposed to be High Street, where the state stopped their sidewalk in front of Value Market. She inquired if they were going to bring it on around to South Street. So I let her know that that was a state project and we didn't have a whole lot of input in that. So I directed her back to the state and they directed her to the town.
Do we have sidewalks on South Street?
We do have sidewalks on South Street.
So it would, I mean, if we went down to South Street, they could pick up a sidewalk and walk.
Sidewalk stops at the park on South Street. On the south side of the road.
It comes down to the park from Main Street or from Indiana Street.
Correct.
Did you talk to anyone at the state?
I did. I talked to their project manager. His stance was they were installing what was on the plans. and no more. There was never sidewalks there before they started, so they didn't see a need to put them where they never were. I did let Ms. Dillon know that I couldn't approve that type of project from my desk. It would have to be approved since it is a state right-of-way. We would have to get approval from the state in order to do a project like that.
They didn't say that they wouldn't approve it, they just said they're not doing it because it was not part of the original plan.
That's correct. She did indicate that she spoke to a representative from the state at the meeting we had here before the project took off. Her words was he was going to look into it, but it never really took off from there.
Sidewalk that goes down, stops there at the beauty shop, I think, and does it go across in front of Value Market across their grassy area?
Yes.
With the way that drops off there, that'd be kind of a tight one.
There is a pretty significant ditch. Once you get on around the curve a little bit, I don't know the exact boundaries, but we may have to buy right away from the homeowners there. There's 2 houses there, 3 houses there.
You don't know if the state already has the right of way?
It's a pretty wide right of way, but fitting the sidewalk between that ditch and the property line would be tough. I'd have to look at that pretty close, but I know it's getting tight right in there.
We're obviously not going to pour concrete this time of year, but is that something that you could maybe look at and just bring it back to the council and say this is what it would take?
Sure, I can get a cost estimate on that, bring it back to the council.
Would that be acceptable with the council?
Okay, sure.
Dave, would you mind shutting the TVs off? There's a lot of good movies on there, but I don't think it's adding to the public meeting. Thanks.
Next item on the agenda, 300 East Washington Street, William J. Adams.
Hello, how you doing today? Doing good? Do I just pass these out to you?
Yeah.
So, passing these out, and I'm sure you're gonna read them, they're simple and to the point. I'd like to say something about it before you come to a conclusion. So, if you just read it without any kind of backstory, what I'm proposing here just looks like, I'm trying to get you guys just to give us this property here, but since the town's owned it for 16 years, when I first got my property, there was, 6 foot of brush, 10 foot wide all the way down the property line. It took me 3 years to clean out. Miss Lundy has been cutting the grass back there for 16 years, taking care of the storm damage. The property has been very egregious, not only to our structures, but to the safety of the people on the property, my children, for one. I had a tree fall from the town's property onto my house, put a hole in my ceiling right above where my son sleeps. And my insurance company took care of that, took care of my roof and everything else. But I took it in my own hands and spent around $4,000 so far getting that property cleaned up so that the trees wouldn't be a safety hazard to me and my family or my structures. I'm just going to read it. I, William J. Adams, wish to position the town of Mooresville split and deed the parcel number you see there, legal IDs, Lot 5, Trogdon Addition, South Half, into third equal parts divided among the three neighboring homeowners, Jerry Lundy, Rick Smith, and myself, William J. Adams, is the intent of the homeowners, if such actions were taken by the town of Mooresville, to improve upon and maintain the aforementioned property with the following actions: removing dead trees that threaten neighboring structures and roadways, keeping grass maintained and at an acceptable level, and installing landscaping for aesthetics. Appreciate your time and consideration for this. We was doing the Pledge of Allegiance that said for justice for all, there at the end, and it just made me think that I've spent, $4,000 or $5,000, 16 years of my time. My neighbor Rick and my other neighbor Jerry Lundy has spent, since the moment the town has owned this property, we have been the ones maintaining it. And at the beginning of the year, I spent another $2,400 because all the brush being overgrown there and the creek being there, you can't even go in your yard or do the mosquitoes unless the air is flowing through there. So we took out all the brush so that the air would flow through there, and lo and behold, it was actually livable on my front porch this year. I seen that the tax assessment on that property was $12,900. There's at least $10,000 worth of tree work that needs done. On the title, there was no stipulations. The town got it for $1 from Merle Sears. I'm not really asking for a giveaway. I'm just asking to recoup some of what I've already done, taking care of this property. And that's basically it.
All three neighbors are for this?
Say,
All three neighbors
yes.
are for what you're proposing?
Yep. Jerry Lundy's here. Rick, I believe, is at work. He works a lot.
Dave, do you know why the town ended up, I know where this is, and it makes no sense to me to start with, but why the town owns it? So I just don't know the history of it. Do you?
I don't know the history of why it was given to the town.
I know. Because the brush was 6 foot tall, 10 foot wide, all the way from the front to the back of the property. It was a mess, a complete mess. So, even after we've spent time, it'd take another 10 grand to clean it up.
Does it serve a function for the town?
No, we've never maintained it. We have no use for it. We do have a sewer line easement that runs between Mr. Adams' house and that property. We would like to maintain that easement, obviously, but we've never had a need for it in my 30 years.
Is it, is it a creek that we've cleaned out, like as a part of the flood control? And
Yeah.
so you would still need access to that, obviously.
Yeah, we cleaned it out years ago. I think you signed over a right of entry for us to clean that. It's been a few years. Keeping that creek clean is a pretty important step that we need to continue to do for the flooding in town.
Do you have a recommendation on this?
I don't see a need for the town to have the piece of property. I guess it wouldn't bother me to see it go away from the town's ownership. Whichever mechanism that is, like deeding it or whatever you choose.
I don't know the legalities, so.
I did ask Dave to pull the deed on it, because I know that.
He had sent the deed.
Yeah, there's nothing on it. And that, I talked to you in Dave's office, and I said, I don't know what the stipulations were. I think the deed was done in 2008. Jeff, I don't know if you remember that or not.
Not offhand, I don't recall that.
Would have been first year.
I have it on my phone. I didn't have a copy.
Yeah, I reviewed the deed. There's no restrictions on it for specific use, because usually when you have a grant to a community, they want to use for something, whether that be a park or some other type of facility. There's no restrictions on the deed that I was able to determine. The legalities of how to move it, there's a whole chapter on disposition of real estate as it applies to municipalities. So we're gonna have to follow that chapter, but one of them is, if a determination is made by the council that the best use is to an abutting landowner. What makes this one a little bit trickier is we're talking about three parcels, or three separate landowners, and a division of this into three. I mean, in order to do that properly, we'll have to have a survey done in order to get legal descriptions drawn out for proper transfers and things of that nature.
Could we transfer it to the three of them? And then let them wrestle for thirds?
So the way that would work is, I guess we could go through the process, and then have it deeded over in all three landowners' name, and they can deal with it how they want to, but then we're out of it. So like if there's a dispute between the three of you, the town's not involved in resolving that dispute, it would be almost a tenants in common type of transfer. So there's cleaner ways to do it, but that would be the quickest way to effectuate a transfer, and then the three property owners would have to figure it out. And then what I would have to do is I would have to look on the surveys, because I'm looking at it on my phone right now. I see this mass. I don't know where the lines are. I don't know who all the abutting property owners are, because technically any abutting property owner would have a say or a claim to it. So
Is that the only three that touch it?
I believe.
Does yours go all the way back, like to the alley?
Yes.
And then behind behind the
Yes.
Lundys, there's two parcels there, isn't there?
It's 268 and a half is behind Miss Lundy's is 268 East Washington.
Okay, so that, where yours is deep all the way to the alley?
Yes, sir.
And then there's two in between Washington and the alley to the west of you,
Yes.
Okay.
I
That
believe,
would be
if
the
I
only
understand what
three.
you're saying.
That would be the only three that touch it,
Yeah,
right?
right. We're all in agreement about, conserving it. I mean, we want to improve upon the property, because improving upon that is going to, improves upon our houses, so when it's a big pile of sticks over there, it doesn't look too good.
Jewel, it would take it from a tax exempt property and it would be
it would go back
back
on the tax rolls, correct?
yeah.
I'm not sure how big of a number that's going to be in thirds, but it would be an increase in the.
It's an odd situation to me. It's useless to the town, just about. I don't want to belittle a previous donation or whatever occurred there, but I don't see any use to the town. And you don't, I don't want to offend the family or anything, but it's an odd shape, and
It was just recently that I realized, someone made me realize that the town did own it.
The creek's going right through it.
right,
Yeah.
it's not buildable.
No,
It's
I can plant some apple trees over there. So, after I clean it up more.
Wanted to have the sewer easement, the creek easement, and then if the bridge fund's going away, that bridge is right there situated. Is that bridge mainly in front of your property, or is it kind of
It's in
split
front of
there?
my property.
Okay.
And the sidewalks on it are horrible. I can see the rebar through it. Looks like the bridge is about to fall over. Come look at it.
That's what Dave was given a task to do at our last meeting.
Sorry.
Council, we need to either tell him no thank you, we want to keep that in case we ever want to build a new government center there, or we need to give Jewel permission to move forward with finding out all the legalities of this.
I'd make a motion to move forward, have Jewel move forward with the property owners
Well, with us, and then we'll move forward with you.
with us and get it ready to transfer.
Motion been made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I think you're closer to the answer that you want, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
It'll take some time just to get.
When do I know, or?
We'll know right after we know. We don't know because, what is it, Robert McNamara? We don't know what we don't know. We've not done this before.
Okay.
So this is treading new water.
Well, please don't get annoyed with me if I become a squeaky wheel until we know.
We can't speed up the wheels, but we'll do the best that we can.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And Greg Toro. .221 East Harrison Street Sewer Adjustment. Do we have anyone here from East Harrison Street? Dylan, the way this was explained to me, apparently this property had a severe water leak. They were billed at the beginning of November, $1,038.40. The customer was given a 98,000 gallon adjustment by the Indiana Water Company. That reduced that $1,038 bill to $530.76. That's the remaining balance. The question is, do we want to go further than what the water company did? Do we want to go back? One of the things that I think has been done in the past is go back to an average of 3 or 4 months.
This says it was billed for 197,000 gallons.
Well, they thought they were thirsty, and they had an irrigation system, but it wasn't a professionally installed one.
What happened?
I think the line broke out in the front yard. And if you look in with it, it does show that they did buy the parts to repair it.
Okay. So it went down the storm sewer or into the yard?
Into the yard, down the storm sewer, into the neighbor's yard,
Wow.
across the street into the cemetery creek. It's a lot of water.
And this is a house?
It is a house.
That's got to be some
Hopefully
kind of
without a
record.
basement. Hopefully without a basement.
And if you look at Mr. Evans's letter, he indicated that he was not aware of it until the water company shut off his water for extreme high usage. And so the water company is the one that noticed that it was up at that number, and then he started trying to figure it out. And so,
Well, we've made these adjustments for situations like this before. I don't know I've seen one this much since I've been on, but
The motion is ask them to pay the $530.76 or to have the clerk treasurer average it out and bill an average of however many bills you suggest. Do what?
What we usually do, right?
This is not that common. This is not that common. Especially 197,000.
Answered a lot sooner.
When the sinkhole opens up. Gentlemen, I need a motion.
I make a motion, we do what we normally do and do an average of 3 bills.
Average of 3 bills.
Is that what we normally do? I mean, like, I can only remember 1 or 2 maybe in the past, but I would say 3 bills, yes.
I think that's kind of what we do with the irrigation part of it. We average the 3 bills and go from there.
I think that's fair.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Jeff Shane for. H, Regina Shelby, Event Coordinator.
I will try not to take up too much time. I am here to ask the town of Mooresville to create a position for a town event coordinator. I am also asking for that position. In the last couple of years, I've owned a business here in town. I've gotten to know many of the business owners that are here in the town of Mooresville. I have standing relationships with them. We talk a lot. We share ideas. We communicate pretty much on a daily basis. And a big concern of all of us is that we do not have enough flowing foot traffic in the downtown area of Mooresville. A lot of us feel that maybe creating more events and doing more things would help those. There's been many people in the past that have created different events. Just this year, I'm sure you guys remember, I took over the street fairs and tried to help with those. I've also worked with the Victorian Christmas Board to help with that event as well, which is also a good way to bring people into the town and get them to recognize that we do have a lot of businesses in town that need their attention. I also feel like Mooresville is growing, which we just discussed this evening, and I think it would be a good idea to have that office with the town of Mooresville to help support, partner, and run events for the town of Mooresville. I know we have event coordinators for the Parks Department already. It would be nice if there was a central location with the town of Mooresville that can kind of bridge that gap with communication, and also other people that want to have events in the town of Mooresville and being able to bridge that gap and communicate with the department heads and so forth there. I've given you guys all packets this evening that gives a rundown of what I think this position means. I'm not going to read all that out loud. I know you guys have been here probably longer than you want to be tonight. I do have a couple things that I want to kind of touch with. I've already met with the board for the 200th anniversary. Very nice people. I explained to them, what I wanted to try to do with this, and they all agreed that it would be a really great position for the town of Mooresville to have, and to help partner with the town of Mooresville for even the 200th anniversary celebration as well. I think that this could also help with a coordinated effort to try to alleviate some of the chaos that goes on with the events that people have now, with shuffling around which department do we go to, which department head do we talk to. This would kind of put this all into one area. Not to mention, it would bring more people into the town of Mooresville and also keep our community and residents that live here spending their money in the town of Mooresville. A lot of our residents here have families, they have children, and they take their children to other places because Mooresville doesn't really offer a family atmosphere and regular things for families to do together. So this would help keep our residents that already live in Mooresville here in the community and doing things with their neighbors. I feel like this is going to be a really great idea, and I also feel like it's going to be a financial gain, not only for the town, but also for the businesses in the town of Mooresville. And I don't just mean the downtown area of Mooresville. There's many different aspects of our town that people don't know about, or that are underutilized, that we can branch out, and the town of Mooresville can host different events for those places as well. I've also, in the back of your packet, I'm sure you noticed, this packet is probably bigger than what you guys expected. There is a list of just ideas that we could do to bring more events to Mooresville. I also want to make mention, and I want to be very clear, there were some things said on Facebook in the last couple days about Victorian Christmas and how I have this big idea to change it and it not be Victorian Christmas. That is absolutely 100% not the case. Victorian Christmas has been here for 33 years. There's no reason for it to go anywhere now. The only thing that I have mentioned that I would like to do is to make Victorian Christmas a bigger event. There are a lot of people that can't make it to Saturday events. I would like to see Mooresville make it a 2-day event so that people that can't always make it on a Saturday or can't always make it for the hours that Victorian Christmas happens can enjoy the Victorian Christmas atmosphere for an extra day. It also spreads that out into a larger area for the event. So, I'm willing to take questions, just don't bombard me too much.
I actually have a legal question.
Okay.
How does, just walk through how a town adds an employee? I've not seen that done. And then, can you explain the legal differences between an employee of the town versus like an independent contractor?
Yeah, so, okay, there's a lot there. First,
Yeah.
to add an employee to the town, what you would have to do is go back to your budget, right?
Right.
And find the funding for that. You would have to create that position via ordinance, and then amend your salary ordinance to include the salary that you're going to pay that position. The budget would also have to include the amounts needed to operate that position. So I don't know if you would want to try and put that into a different department or create its own department, or how you would want that set up. But in that, you'd have to have the considerations of not just the salary, but you're going to have the PERF obligations, the insurance obligations, and everything that goes along with another employee. For an independent contractor, what you're looking at is getting into a contract with an individual where you don't have any of those other additional aspects of it that are tasked with specific services to perform for the town under a contract. And they would be 1099 at the end of the year for tax purposes. You have a lot in here.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that consideration of the budget and the position would have to be much more than just the salary and it's going to be, okay, what are the costs of putting all this on? What events do you want to have put on? The revenues that may come from it, from the town. And then also, you want to talk to your insurance carriers to say, okay, does this increase our liability on that side at all with all of these different functions? Regardless of whether it's an independent contractor or a employee, you're going to have the same thing, that these events will become a town event. And so that's why you want to talk to your insurance carrier, because it's your event, not
Right.
the shop owners coming together for a street fair or
Right.
things of that nature. So there are a lot of moving parts in there. It's really going to be determined upon what the council wants to see, whether they think this is a good idea, and then where the funding for everything's going to come from.
So I maybe be able to help a little bit with the funding aspect of this. If the town opens this position and we host 2 events a month, only 2 events a month, given an average of all the other events that I've been participating in, one event would bring in about $5,500, and that's on the lower end. If we host 2 events a month, that is an average of $120,000 a year.
Now, would that be from sponsorships?
So that does not include sponsorships. This just includes vendor fees, ticket fees, so forth. As far as sponsorships, I've already got companies that are interested in helping with annual sponsorships. And I've also managed to locate 4 different grants that the state of Indiana would offer if the town had this position available.
So the funding mechanism,
Is
Makes me-
essentially self-funding.
right, it makes me a lot more comfortable just
Right.
looking at the numbers, because, if it was just from sponsorships that 5,500 was coming from,
Right.
if you have more events, it limits, small business owners only have so much disposable
Yes.
revenues that they can use. And so
Right.
if you add more events, it doesn't necessarily mean that the same income is going to be coming
Exactly.
in. But if this is coming from other types of revenue sources, then.
Right, so with
that
each
can
event, let's just take the street fair because that's kind of my expertise at this point. With the street fairs, we collect vendor fees from each vendor that participates in the street fair. We also collect fees from every food truck that participates in the street fair. You can also look at, and this is back in my list of ideas, the town of Mooresville can create T-shirts, can create keychains, can create tumbler cups, which are really popular right now, all of which can generate revenue to help support this position on an annual basis.
So, Jewel, how do you budget for something that is fee-based, or rather than you collect a tax and here it is and you know you're getting it, you know.
Well, I think what you would want to do is you would want to look at your tax revenue as the mechanism for funding this position, because you can't guarantee on that other fee-based stuff. And so you'll want to work with your budget to find that position and fund that position and expenses associated with that through your tax receipts. And it's just like in the budgeting process, you know, when Baker Tilly comes in and says, okay, but what are your revenue streams? The alternative revenue streams outside of that, well, you add that all up and then you're able to move that around as well. And so it is, you have to, ideally, I think the best way for a municipality to move forward would be to budget it based off of your tax receipts, and the alternative revenue streams are kind of, you're hoping that they're there, but you're not funding this position and counting on this based upon those alternative revenue streams, because there's no guarantee on those. And so if you're able to fund this within your tax budget that you approve and send into the DLGF each year, then that means it's going to be more of a long-term situation than, okay, well, we didn't raise enough money over this past month, and we don't have the funds to pay for it. Does that make sense?
If the town were to create a permanent employee and fill that position, are there laws requiring us to open that process up?
It's an at-will employment state, and so by creating the position, if you're talking about state laws, I don't think there's anything that says, okay, you have to have it open or in an interview such and such people. You hire the person that you want for it. Now, when you talk about some other positions, such as merited public safety and things, there's other requirements that go along with that, but there aren't necessarily with this. I haven't looked at and don't have the internal policies on everything and the ordinances here to see if there's I know you have for your boards an application process and having it out there. I don't know that you have the same language for employees.
So might I also add that in these generous packets that I've given you this evening, I have about 6 letters of recommendation from different business owners within town that know me, that I've worked with in the past, that also agree with this position and think that it would do the town a great service by having it. And I also have an entire group of people here tonight to support this. If you guys could all stand up and show that you're supporting this, that would be wonderful. All of which are business owners in the town of Mooresville. There are a few that couldn't make it tonight, but again, those letters of reference are in here as well.
Can I say one word?
You guys.
You guys all know me. Anyways, since Jeannie's took over the street fairs and stuff like that, it's a lot better for us as store owners. You know, we've been getting a lot more public and we've been getting more recognized. And that's so important to us. After, the street closures, after this closure over here, it hurt us a lot, and all you guys know that. But we're getting back on our feet now. And I hate to see Jeannie's store go, but I'd love to see her as point of doing all these events, because she's really good at what she does. And we see it in here. I mean, we see the people coming in and what she's bringing into the town. And I know as store owners, we can all add to it too, our input and stuff. You guys know I ran Victorian Christmas for a few years and stuff. And we really changed a lot of things to make it better, to bring more people in. And I know I took away the Victorian Christmas theme, but I brought a lot of different stuff in to make it cooler for the kids, to make it more exciting. And I know that's what Jeannie wants to do, is make it more exciting for the town and bring more people in constantly and not just once a year or a couple of times a year. That just doesn't do it for us. We need it all the time. We really need to see Mooresville build. So, that's my opinion.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Do other towns have events?
So, from this research that I've done, this is actually how Franklin started theirs, but Franklin has now moved into a not-for-profit organization that's a lot bigger than just one person. Whitestown has a full-time event coordinator for them as well. A little bit further out, you're looking into like Rushville with Rush County. Also, Greenfield has an event coordinator that's full-time on the town's budget as well. Plainfield has an event coordinator. I'm not sure how the one in Plainfield works. I didn't receive a call back for the questions that I had with that one. But this is a position with other towns as well, yes.
I know what an event coordinator does, but I didn't know if that
Right,
contract work or just.
right.
Or, well,
Franklin is the only one that I know for sure that right now is a contract work, and that's just because Discover Downtown Franklin became such a big thing for Franklin that it needed to be moved.
Questions?
I know you've got questions.
I've got tons of questions.
I know
Go
you
ahead.
do.
Well, I'll just make a quick statement. I think I would love to see the town do more to work with our businesses.
Right.
I think that's a common complaint that I
And I
hear.
feel like this would bridge that gap there and give that extra line of communication with all the departments and the small businesses in town as well. And not just the downtown businesses. I want to make sure that that is expressed. We have a ton of local-owned businesses within the town limits of Mooresville. And to be able to bridge that gap and create that line of communication would be huge.
That was actually one of my questions was, how do you see it? Like, I mean, you have the downtown, which is very important, but how do you see it? I mean, there's all kinds of strip malls, there's all kinds of
Yes.
corridors.
Right.
Even like High Street
Right.
or Indiana Street
So
South.
my plan of action, if this is able to come through, is the first thing I would do is go out and introduce myself to everyone that I don't already know, that is a local-owned business in the town of Mooresville, and see what they can also bring to the table. This is going to be, a coordinated effort. So it's not just going to be me doing all the work. It's going to be, the businesses working together and also volunteer programs to get a lot of the things done. But I think that bringing the outside, like Jess from Chunky Monkeys, she is not in town Mooresville, but she is, in the town of Mooresville, and she has offered her services many times and gives great support on this, but like I said, she's outside of the town, the downtown area, I should say. So, we could bridge a lot of gaps here if we had someone that's willing to connect with the business owners and create those relationships and those lines of communication in order to get many more participants that could make these events bigger and better.
How do you think you would deal? I'm just asking. I'm going to have a lot of questions, but I won't do them all tonight because
I appreciate that.
There's a lot to think about. Mm-hmm. What about an objection? Like, what if an individual organization wants to do an event? Maybe they've been in charge of it for years.
Right.
They don't want the town coming in and saying, "Hey, we're taking this
Right.
from you." How would you see the role?
So there's no objection to that. I would just be the point person for them to communicate and to be able to coordinate the other department heads and the way things work.
Like a supportive role rather
Yes.
than a.
Right, so more of a partnered role to, hey, let me support you on this. Hey, can we advertise this for you on the town Facebook page, on the town website? Can we help boost this for you as well?
What about objections like, well, we don't want the downtown closed all the time for every event because I live in the downtown and I don't
Right.
want the traffic.
Right, so
things
not
like that.
every event, and mind you, my list of events that I have given you guys are just ideas, and I've got hundreds more of them running through my head. I actually cut the list in half before I came tonight. All of the ideas that I have aren't just ideas that can happen in the downtown area. They're not just ideas that are going to cause the streets to be closed. These are events that are very small. I did put in there suggesting that the town host workshops for different things, different subjects. We have a really great auditorium here in the town building that's not being utilized. Why are we not utilizing that to help people of our community? One of the biggest things that I've heard about workshops that community is holding right now is a workshop for senior residents of the community and technology, and how we can teach them how to use the technology that we see in it every day. Those kinds of events will not close down the streets, but they're also helping our community members at the same time.
I could see the event being a big partner with organizations like St. Francis
Yes,
or even the senior center for something
Right.
like what maybe they have a program, but they want to bring it in closer to town
Right.
and advertise it, use our facility, whatever.
and this also gives us the ability, like I said, to partner with other events that are going on and help raise awareness of those events, help advertise for those events, help put social media out for those events, yes.
Okay, I'm going to quit for now because I'm monopolizing, but, I have a lot of questions about what would be the best way. I want to make sure we give a avenue for people to handle objections,
Right,
because it's something new.
right. I
And-
realize that no definite decision is going to be made tonight, and I didn't come here expecting that in any way, shape, or form. I realize this is going to be a process, but as you guys have already been made aware, my store is closing. I plan to be closed by the end of the month. Unfortunately, it's just been a rough year. It's been a rough year, and not just for me, it's been a rough year for a lot of the businesses in town. And it's not just one thing or another. I won't blame it on the street closure because it's not 100% the street closure. I'm not going to blame it on High Street because it's not 100% High Street. And it's definitely not 100% anything to do with the town. Tom, you own a business. I'm sure that you understand that sometimes there's ups and downs. So, yeah, I am closing by the end of the month.
Good to hear that.
Thank you.
But congratulations.
Thank you.
Goes both ways.
It's better that I do it now before I go into too much debt.
Lastly, just thank you for the efforts on the light poles
Of
and
course.
Victorian Christmas.
Of course.
And that goes to, there's a whole bunch of you
There's
to
a
thank.
whole list of people, yes.
This room, I see a bunch of them.
Actually,
Elizabeth Smith.
Rosemary is here tonight. She
Rosemary.
helps Victorian Christmas vastly, and she also does the Mooresville Arts Partnership. And the kids that sang at the tree lighting were fantastic.
There's tons of people right here that
Yes,
have contributed to the event.
yes,
So
absolutely.
thanks for that.
Yeah. I hope everybody likes the decorations. Dave's office and the Parks Department was really great in trying to help contain my excitement for the Christmas decorations this year. I will say though, and Tom and I have discussed this at the tree lighting the other night, all of the lights that are going from pole to pole down Indiana Street this year were donated by Lowe's and Menards. So those came at no cost to the town or any one of us. And then the pole decorations, as of today, Hallie and I have raised $2,100 to help 4 families for Christmas by adopting out the poles and letting the businesses in town decorate those. To me, that's a success.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have 4 families and 12 children to be able to sponsor this event.
Much.
Thank you.
Council, have anyone?
Yeah, this will save my councilman comments. Thank you very much for what you've done, and thank all the business owners as well for the downtown participation, what it looks like. It's awesome. It really looks good, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
We will move forward, and I'm sure one of us will be in touch with you as we.
I appreciate
Forward.
that very much.
Thank
No
you
more
for bringing this to our
questions
attention.
tonight? Okay. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Department head reports. Everybody at once. Take your time.
I don't have very much. I just wanted to remind everybody that this Saturday is the Christmas for Kids. I have 36 kids that are in need of Christmas stuff. We're going to take shopping. We're going to have a movie at Mooresville Movies starting at 8 o'clock. Hopefully Santa's going to be there. Jack's donated some donuts for us. And after the movie, then we're going to give them a police escort to Walmart, and we're going to spend some money on them for Christmas. My big thing right now is volunteers, so I don't know how the volunteers worked in the past, but anybody, I won't turn away volunteers. So I expect to see you there, Tom. I will tell you this, Mooresville being the great town that it is, I continue to receive donations. Somebody stopped by the police department and gave over $8,000 this morning.
Wow.
Specifically for that program. And so we'll be able to have a good Christmas for these kids. As a matter of fact, I've taken extra kids on, so it's a good thing. I did it before Shop with the Cop. It's always a great thing. These kids deserve to have a good Christmas. Christmas is always special to me, and so I think it's a good thing for the town. So that's about all I had.
Could you
call it that because we don't want to give the percentage away.
Right now, we call it Christmas for kids. So.
There you go.
Yeah, so we're
date and the time?
so it's December the 10th, with Saturday. Volunteers, if they could be there at 7:15, and that way I'm going to assign a child to each volunteer, and then we'll have people at the checkout lines helping with getting the tags off the clothes and getting the stuff in the bags. But I don't want to lose any kids. Obviously, I have kids as young as 4 years old. So
That's 7:15.
having monitors, I've raised my kids. I'm done with that. So any volunteers, I have people from businesses around that have offered to volunteer. So, but I won't turn away volunteers. Plus, you get free Jack's Donuts. Can't beat that. So, I did have one thing for Mr. Lee. Where are we at on this ordinance for the charging for freedom of information on the video stuff?
So I talked to the fire chief as well today. We're going to work on, because he's got some charges he wants to try and implement into fire services as well. So it's going to be pulling that all together, but Beth's the one that's working on that. So.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get an update.
Yep.
So we still have people coming in and asking for them. So.
Okay.
All right. Unless you have anything else, I appreciate the time. Have a good one.
Thank you.
So in the Public Works office, we're working really hard to finalize the cemetery project we've been working on for a long time. And in doing that, speaking with Julie, she would like to update our rules board at the cemetery. It's kind of a new world. You find people sitting in their cars gaming or whatever. So she wanted to update the rules board. If you want to take a look at those, make additions or subtractions, just shoot me an email. A lady named Brenda Hunt, she's with the Daughters of the Revolution. She's been coming in, and there's a lot of little pieces of the puzzle that have to be put together before we go live with this. And she's volunteering her time, and quite a bit of time doing that for us. So really appreciated the fact that she's doing that. Guys are working on the final torch. We've got a lift down there. Should hopefully complete that project in the next few days. Leaf pickup ends this week on snow removal.
What do you mean she's helping? Is this with the computer side, like the?
Yeah, just making sure like the images are matching up with the grave sites.
Oh, I
and
see.
everything lining up digitally. So when we make it live.
Oh, so that making sure our data is correct and all of that sort of thing when we go live with the virtual map of the cemetery.
Very generous on her part.
Wow.
That's all. Thank you. I did not.
I know you've had a lot to do,
Yeah.
especially right now.
Yeah.
But I just wondered.
I'll come back with a report on that at the next council
I
meeting.
appreciate it.
I dropped the ball.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I know you got a lot to do. And I just mentioned it the last time because I've been wondering if anybody inspects that bridge.
It is in bad shape. I've looked at it, I've been under it, it's in bad shape. I need to get with the county and see how we're gonna move forward with that.
Don't want to push you because I know you got a lot to do.
We are going to push it because we need to do it before the end of the year, because they are going to do away with their bridge tax. And at that point in time, they can say no, but if we call it to their attention prior to the end of the year,
I will call them tomorrow.
can we make him the point of contact to contact them? That way it doesn't have to come to us.
Sure.
Gentlemen, let's bring that to a head right now with him. the county is doing away with the bridge tax. They kind of tried to say that with the last bridge, but legal counsel has found that if we have a failure or a bridge that needs repaired during that taxing time, it doesn't matter if it gets repaired afterwards, as long as that fund was there. Rather than have him inspect the bridges, bring it back to us and say, oh geez, look at these, and we say, yeah, that's bad. I'd like to make a motion or have a motion made and a vote on Dave being the lead contact point to be able to reach out immediately when he finds a problem to anyone and everyone that will listen to you at the county level. Documentation of it to where we know that it's done before the end of the year. Can I have that in the form of a motion?
Should we have him inspect all the town bridges?
I thought that's the direction he was going.
Okay, and then my second question is, would it be, if he finds one in disrepair, should we have someone with an engineering stamp or whatever to back up?
I would think the one on Bridge Street would need that.
I don't know.
Structure like that.
It's big, yeah, it's significant, yeah.
So the way that I would see how this would work is they would go out and inspect these, and from his inspection, identify bridges that he believes to are in disrepair and need repaired, and report that to the county. The county would then use their engineer to come out to make a determination as to whether or not that needs done.
Does he just send an email, or should he go through you to report that?
I would do it like you've got the contacts down there in the county. I would report it to get it into their system and do it via email so you have it in written format. My guess is we could get some pushback again on this, but we'll deal with that when we deal with that. But if it comes from me, then it's automatically going to start that pushback.
I see. So he would come to a public meeting as well and read that into the public record?
Yeah, I think he could probably give a report in his department head report saying, hey, here are the bridges that I identified, and reported that to the county, or something of that nature, but...
Maybe drop us an email on his progress.
Sure will.
Move to make Dave the contact. Repairs for...
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Pass.
Dave,
Oh, go ahead.
that plate looks pretty big from my angle. We just put something else on it.
Yeah. Does this include the ones that are over state highways, or is that state only?
So these are going to be bridges that are on our roads within the town. I don't want to speak for the town, but that's what I would assume you would want to do. You're not responsible for state roads, so.
Who cleans out the debris that, like, for example, the White Lip Creek, the 67 bridge? Who is responsible to clean out the debris, stumps, trees that get caught in the bridge? The state is? Is that the state or the county? State?
On right down south.
Yeah. Is it?
They've always done it in the past. But
Okay.
It's rare that they do it, but
Is it building up again?
builds up till we get a flood and it's gone. It builds up till we get a flood and it's gone. Right.
Not too big. Okay, thank you.
Real quick, last couple of days, we did take a partial of our extrication equipment. They should be into service hopefully by Thursday, or actually, tomorrow. We're still waiting on a little bit more, but we'll hopefully have it because the product is coming in slowly, but we've got 3 of the units in right now, so guys are going through and looking at it and trying to make sure we can put them on the trucks properly and secure them. Also, as you guys know, that I am down 1 firefighter with retirement with Captain Fletcher from July. With the town clerk's office, we was told to kind of hold off until he got paid out. Next month, I gave a conditional offer of employment, and we're going to be basically taking that. He has to go through PERF, so we're just waiting on all of his test results and all that stuff. So I need to go ahead and start that process, just keeping you guys in the loop on that one. Other than that, I have nothing further.
By the way, just to start a little rivalry here, I think your light pole that you decorated beat the police department.
Well, if you really want to know the police department, ask them where they got the ladder from.
Yeah? Did you hear that, Chief? He's not listening, so.
Never does.
Chief Buckner, did you hear that? I think the fire department's pole that they decorated was a little bit better than the PD's this year. So you're gonna have to up your game. Yeah.
Legal counsel. I don't think Chris isn't here, is she? Are there any public comments? Motion for approval of payment of claims.
To approve $1,044,030.
$0.12? And is it the payroll clearing docket? There should be a second docket. Oh, claims, and the second one is payroll docket. Payroll clearing. Wait a minute, let's do one. I'm sorry.
One at a time, okay.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
That's on the payment of claims, so.
Okay, second.
Made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Second one is the payroll clearing, that's the withholding rate.
The deductions.
Approve $4,817,495.68.
And that's just one check to one person, is that legal?
I wish.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Greg Jeff, 4-0. The first one was Greg Shane, 40. County council comments, Jeff?
None.
One thing, and I don't know if you've been informed, I just got a call before the meeting about the Community Crossings grant. Have you heard about that yet? Okay, so do you mind if I announce it?
Oh,
Okay. So the governor today announced that the community crossing grant that we applied for the Monroe Street improvements has been approved, and it is for $795,675, and that's the amount that Banning Engineering submitted for the project approval.
I think the total project will be in the $1 million range.
And the school, I think I don't remember if we discussed it here or not, but the school's approved, I think up to $450,000 or so for lighting to continue onto Carlisle Street from Indiana, fully from Monroe all the way to Indiana Street. So it'll continue, so this will update the corridor from approximately where the Goodyear store is in that area on 267. They're close to Subway, all the way up to Main Street in Mooresville. And it's to put sidewalks on both sides, lighting, and crosswalks for the school children and so forth. So it's a big update to the area. So we did get their grant approval. So
Tom, I sent you that email, didn't I? I forwarded it to you.
Hey?
And that was when I got it, it's a while ago, maybe a week or so.
well, the approval just came today.
Yeah, I know, I'm talking about an email from the school.
On the lighting, I don't know that I got that, Jeffrey. I think there's been some funny things going on with the emails.
I received that one, but
I'll check.
I'll look and see.
Okay,
Hey, we'll take their money.
sure.
so that's some good news.
You have anything else? Okay.
No, sir. Thanks.
Craig?
I think the town looks great. Everybody's decorating nice, especially the tower over there, the internet place. You come in from Monrovia or 144, you can see it. It's really neat. I think the town looks great. Thank everybody.
In an email this afternoon, we received our 1782 from the state of Indiana. 1782 is the form that they tell us, hey, this is your tax rate, this is what was approved, and basically the final okey dokey on the budget process. This year, our budget out of our all of our funding in our four general funds was up $616,000. Still, our tax rate, and for those of you that sometimes get that notification in April or May, and it says that your house value went up 20%, and you think, my God, now my taxes are going to go up that much. What happens is your assessed value increases throughout your community. Your tax rate should go down. Our tax rate last year for the four funds that are property tax driven was 0.6844. That's 68.5 cents per every $100 of assessed value. This year it did go down. The state has it listed as 0.6047, so it went down approximately 8 cents. That's a decline of about 12% on the tax rate. Our assessed valuation throughout the community, Mooresville proper, went up 19.75%. So when you got that notice that said, hey, looky here, your house is worth this much more, that's the sticker shock that we got. Again, we will spend more money. Our tax rate, if you go on Gateway, we are spending way above our income. We do not have a balanced budget as a whole, but the reason that we don't have a balanced budget is because we are funding a lot of capital improvement projects that are one-time expenses. That'll bring us back into a comfortable spot as far as our capital improvement plans. Matt, in our budget, we have fully funded the extrication tools, and also if we don't get the grant for the SCBA or compressed breathing apparatuses, we have that funded. So these are items that are public safety and a necessity. It's not something that we can just put off and say we don't need that. We have to have it. So if you go to Gateway, yes, it looks like we're spending over our budget. We are spending it out of our cash reserves for items that are not luxuries, that are necessities. Our next council meeting will be December 20th. You guys want to have it here? What time?
Okay,
6:30? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Sorry.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Shane, Jeff, 4-0. Dave, how are you?